Hey, and welcome to episode number 23 of the Joe Cannon Health Podcast. I'm Joe Cannon, and the topic for this week is whether or not a very popular testosterone boosting supplement actually can raise your testosterone levels. It's actually called Testofen, and you've probably seen it advertised on television, and that's going to be the main topic this week. But before we get into that, let's tackle the myth of the week. You know, I like to tackle a health and fitness myth every week, and this one's no different. So what's on tap for this week? Well, we're going to talk about abs. Do you need to train your abs every single day? No, you don't. There, I said it. Myth busted. Seriously, though. At some point, people probably seem to have gotten into the habit of training their abdominal muscles every single day. And while I'm not sure where all this got started, I'd like people to realize that performing lots of crunches or sit-ups or planks or other type of abdominal exercises every day is just not something that people need to be doing. And here's why. Your abdominal muscles are already getting worked every single day. Think about it. Every time you walk up steps, walk down steps, you get out of your car, you carry groceries, your abdominal muscles are being worked. So it's really just not necessary to do other abdominal exercises on a daily basis. They're already getting exercised. Another reason people seem to think they need to do crunches and sit-ups and planks every day is because they're under the impression that it's going to burn off belly fat. Again, this is also a very prevalent myth. The myth is actually called spot reduction, the idea that you can burn off fat from only a spot or specific areas of the body, like, for instance, the abdominal region. I also tackled this back in episode number 11, so check back there if you want more insights on this topic. But to further beat a dead horse, one study I uncovered looked at basically 24 healthy guys and women, and they split them up into two groups. They had a non-exercise group that didn't do anything, and they had an abdominal exercise group. So in the abdominal exercise group, what did these people do? Well, they did 2 sets of 10 repetitions for 7 different abdominal exercises, and they did this 5 days a week for 6 weeks. So if we do the math, that comes to 140 repetitions a day, 5 days a week for 6 weeks. That's a lot of reps. So what did they find after the 6 weeks were over? Well, when they tested these people, they found that their abdominal regions did get stronger. That makes sense, actually. They were doing a lot of reps with their abs, and like any other muscle, the abdominal muscles are going to get stronger. That makes perfect sense. But there was no change in belly fat, there was no change in percent body fat, and their total body weight did not go down. So there you have it. 2 myths busted this week. You don't need to do exercises for your abs every day. And if you like to do them every day, that's great. There's no problem with doing that. Just know that it's not going to shrink your midsection or promote any kind of weight loss. So if you're like me and you're paying attention to TV commercials, you've probably seen commercials for dietary supplements touted to boost testosterone levels. These products, I've been paying attention to them actually. They've been around for a long time, but for whatever reason, I'm seeing them more and more on TV these days. Maybe it's just the TV shows I'm watching. I don't know. You tell me if you're seeing them too more. So if you're seeing ads for these products, you may be wondering if they really work. Can they really raise our testosterone levels? Well, the first thing to know is that there's a lot of testosterone boosting ingredients out there. In this week's episode, I want to tackle one of them. It's actually what I think is probably the most popular testosterone boosting supplement out there today. It's called Testofen. And if you haven't heard of it before, my guess is if you've been watching TV, you've probably seen commercials for products that include Testofen because it's in a lot of products these days that I've taken notice of. So what is Testofen? So it's essentially an extract derived from the seeds of an herb that's called fenugreek. So sometimes you may see fenugreek and Testofen used in the same sentence. Again, Testofen is just an extract of the seeds of the fenugreek herb. While fenugreek is an herb, okay, Testofen is actually a trademark name. And so that's why you'll see the word Testofen on a lot of these products, and sometimes it'll have a little TM next to it, meaning it's a trademark compound. The Testofen compound is touted to improve both total testosterone and free testosterone levels. And when you think about it, the name Testofen is actually a pretty good word because test, T-E-S-T, is often written as an abbreviation for testosterone. So pretty good marketing. It's a great name for a supplement ingredient. Before we get into the research, let's cover a little background on testosterone. We all know, I'm sure, that testosterone is an anabolic hormone. But it's good to keep in mind that if you have your testosterone levels measured, your doctor may actually do a couple tests. They may measure your total testosterone level, and that's a measurement of the total amount of testosterone in your body, your free testosterone, and the testosterone that's bound up, attached, if you will, to proteins such as albumin, and there's another protein called sex hormone binding globulin. So again, it binds testosterone very tightly. So if that doesn't make sense, think of it this way. If the testosterone is bound to albumin and sex hormone binding globulins, well, then it's less likely to get released into blood and do stuff like, for instance, build muscle and other things that testosterone is rumored to help. The free testosterone, on the other hand, that's what's floating around the blood that is free to be used to do things with. Realize that testosterone is normally bound up by these proteins. Free testosterone makes up a lot less, like for instance, maybe 1% to 2 to 2.5% of the total testosterone in your body is free. The rest of it is bound to those proteins, albumin and sex hormone binding globulin. And so they're less likely to be available to, say, build muscle. And again, this is why doctors will probably going to be measuring both total testosterone levels as well as free testosterone levels because they can give a more clear picture of what's going on if somebody is having problems. Again, before we delve into the research, let's talk about what's normal. Normal ranges for testosterone may differ from lab to lab. They're not going to be different too much. So what I'll do here is let me just give you the references that I looked on recent blood work that I had done that was conducted by Quest Diagnostics. Quest Diagnostics is a very common laboratory in America that does a lot of different testing. So on the paperwork that I have, they list for normal testosterone levels, normal total testosterone levels for a guy who's, say, 18 and over. They say that range will be between 250 to 1100 nanograms per deciliter. Okay, so that's a pretty big range, 250 to 1100 nanograms per deciliter. Oh, and just for comparisons, women, do actually have testosterone in their body as well. It's just a lot less than for men. With women, total testosterone levels could range anywhere from 2 to 95 nanograms per deciliter. So a lot less for women, but women do actually make it as well. Now, if we talk about free testosterone, remember, free testosterone is the stuff that's freely available to be used by the body. If we look at, say, for men age 18 to 69 years of age, free testosterone levels can range from 35 picograms per milliliter up to 155 picograms per milliliter. And for men over the age of 70 to 89, actually, the reference range is anywhere from 30 to 135 picograms per milliliter. And I give you these ranges up front, and I'll say them again during the episode because I want to talk about some of the ranges that some studies have found when they investigated the Testofen compound. So if Testofen really works, how does it work? Well, the idea kind of goes like this. Testofen contains phytonutrients, phytochemicals, if you will, called saponins. And saponins, if you look at their chemical structure, they look a little bit like testosterone. The idea behind how Testofen is supposed to work goes like this. Remember that testosterone is mostly bound to proteins like albumin and sex hormone binding globulin. Well, these saponins look like testosterone. So it goes like this. The saponins, that what they do is they are supposed to bind to those proteins like albumin and sex hormone binding globulin. And when they do this, they displace testosterone from being bound up. This releases the testosterone into the blood, in turn increasing free testosterone levels. That's the most common explanation for why Testofen is supposed to work. Again, it looks like testosterone, and it can apparently bind to these binding proteins, and in doing so, displacing the testosterone hormone into the blood, in turn raising free testosterone levels. It sounds great. So is there any proof of this? Can the testosterone fenugreek extract raise total testosterone and free testosterone in our bodies? So I looked into this, and I found 3 different investigations on Testofen. So what I want to do here is just give you a quick rundown of these investigations and what they found and what I think may be issues with the studies. So here we go. One study I uncovered, this is actually a pretty well done designed study. It's a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled study. It involved 111 men, and they ranged in age between 40 and 70. That's a pretty good age because after the age of 30 or so, testosterone levels tend to start declining in men. These guys were given either placebo or 600 milligrams of the Testofen extract, and they did this every day, 600 milligrams a day, for 12 weeks. The researchers also had the men fill out before and after questionnaires about how they felt when they were taking either the placebo or they were taking Testofen. So what did they find after this 12-week study were up? Well, in the words of the researchers, they said that Testofen caused, quote, a small but statistically significant increase in total and free testosterone levels. That sounds interesting. So what was going on with these testosterone levels? Well, the men's total testosterone increased from 354 to 398 nanograms per deciliter. Remember that in men, total testosterone ranges from, say, 250 to 1,100 nanograms per deciliter. So while the levels did increase, it wasn't a giant spike in testosterone levels. It didn't look like it to me. They stayed within the normal range. But what about their free testosterone? So if we look at just the free testosterone, it went up from 65 to 71 picograms per milliliter. So what does this mean? Basically, they started out in normal range of free testosterone, and their levels were bumped up a bit by about 6 points. Remember, free testosterone usually ranges between 35 and 155 picograms per milliliters. And again, that's for guys between the ages of 18 and 69. So 35 to 155 is normal. These guys started in the normal range, again, 65, and they went up to 71. So free testosterone did go up, but it went up again by about 6 points. Any way you slice it, it looks like these guys, their free testosterone did go up, but they basically stayed in the middle part of the normal range. The other part of this investigation is that they had these individuals fill out before and after questionnaires about how they felt when they were taking either placebo or the dietary supplement. And the men did express on these questionnaires that they felt like their libido had improved and they had better erections. So what are we to make of all this? Well, according to those before and after questionnaires, the guys said they thought that the Testofen supplement was associated with different improvements. Their total and free testosterone levels did go up, although it wasn't anything dramatic in my opinion. But if we go back to those questionnaires, if they are to be believed, and I have no reason why they wouldn't be, because this was a pretty well done study. It was a placebo-controlled randomized study. If these questionnaires are being believed, it makes me wonder if perhaps maybe the Testofen may be working in ways that's maybe not related to elevating testosterone levels. Again, either way, it's hard to tell. It's an interesting study. It does appear to show that testosterone and free testosterone are going up, but again, the increases are not dramatic in my opinion. Now, as for the second study that I want to take a look at, this one involved 60 healthy guys, and they ranged in age from 25 to 52 years of age. The average age of the people in this study was 41, and while that's good, to be honest with you, I'm not a fan of adding in younger guys in testosterone boosting supplement studies, because testosterone in a 25-year-old guy, I wouldn't expect to be very low to begin with. It doesn't really start declining until usually after the age of 30 or so. So Joe, the researcher, I wouldn't include somebody who was in their 20s in a study like this, but the average age was 41, and that's good. But again, in a perfect world, I'd only include people over the age of 40, but that's my opinion. Either way you slice it, these people in this investigation were given 600 milligrams of Testofen or a placebo. Now, what did they find? When the guys filled out these before and after surveys, they said that they felt like their libidos had improved. But when the researchers tested their testosterone levels, there was no change in testosterone at all. So Testofen did not raise testosterone levels in this investigation. They also noted that these guys did not sleep any better and their mood didn't seem to be improved as well. These can also be attributed sometimes in some studies to elevations in testosterone levels. But regardless, there was no change in testosterone. So I wouldn't expect these people to experience any of the benefits of higher levels of testosterone anyway. So that's the second study. The third study is interesting, but again, I have a few issues with it. So what's it look like? So these researchers looked at 60 healthy guys, and these guys ranged in age from 18 to 35 years of age, and the average age of the people in the study was 23 years of age. And they received either Testofen or a placebo, 600 milligrams of Testofen or a placebo for 8 weeks. All these guys did the same type of strength training program 4 days a week for the 8-week study. So I like the fact that they put them on a strength training study. They had them all do the same type of exercises 4 days a week for 8 weeks. So in that respect, this is actually an interesting study because the other previous studies didn't include exercise. What did they find? Well, compared to those people who took the placebo pill, those taking the Testofen extract, they were shown to have higher levels of testosterone, lower body fat, and they noted that these guys taking Testofen could lift more weight on the leg press. Interestingly, they could not lift more weight with the bench press, but their leg press strength did improve. If we look at their testosterone levels, these individuals, their testosterone went up from 405 to 452 nanograms per deciliter. Remember, the normal reference range for guys is between 250 and 1100 nanograms per deciliter. So this is actually a non-significant, clinically speaking, significant increase in testosterone. So again, 250 to 1100, these guys are kind of in the low range as far as I'm concerned. I mean, they're in the 400s. They stay in the 400s even after taking the Testofen product. That's their total testosterone. But what about their free testosterone? So here's where things get interesting. Their free testosterone increases from 170 to 350 picograms per milliliter. Let's take a step back. Free testosterone, the reference range, at least in the paperwork that I have here, the free testosterone reference range is 35 to 155 picograms per milliliter. These guys started out, apparently, with 170 picograms per milliliter. That's higher than the reference range. Again, 35 to 155. These guys are starting out at 170. So they start off with really high free testosterone to begin with. To me, that just seems a little weird. I also really I also would say that this is the problem because the average age of the guys in this study was 23. I would not have picked younger guys to analyze the effectiveness of a dietary supplement that's often marketed to men over 40. Remember, the average age is 23. So I honestly, I like the fact they threw strength training in, but I question the fact that they were including really young guys. And also, these young guys appeared to have really high free testosterone levels to begin with. Bottom line to this investigation, I think it's interesting, but I personally would like to see it replicated with men over the age of 40. So there we go. We've got 3 studies, at least that I could find, on the testofen compound. So to summarize them, here's what they look like. We've got study 1, which basically says both total testosterone and free testosterone increase, but they don't go up in my opinion. And on questionnaires, the guys say they felt better. And well, that's nice. The testosterone really didn't go up as much as I personally would like to see. Second study says the guys say in questionnaires, yeah, we feel better, but the testosterone level does not increase at all. And then the third study, which is basically the study of younger guys who appear to start off with really high free testosterone levels, we see that their free testosterone basically doubles and they can lift more with the leg press, but they can't do more weight with the bench press. Oh, and their body fat drops as well. That's basically it. That's all the studies I was able to locate. There may be some other investigations floating around out there that I missed, and I'm positive that eventually there's going to be other investigations of the testofen compound published. So you could take this summary for what it is. So that's it with the research. Now, another question that may be related to all this is, if testofen really does raise testosterone levels, will that be translated into, say, better performance in the gym? Do higher levels of testosterone mean a better exercise performance? While more testosterone does appear to be related to more muscle mass, that may not always translate into better exercise performance. And again, this is important for athletes to remember. Remember, there is more to athletic performance than how strong someone is. So I think it would depend on the sport someone is involved in, whether or not something like this may be a benefit to them. For example, in that study I told you about the young guys, how they could lift more weight with the leg press, but they couldn't lift more weight with the bench press. Turns out they could actually do more repetitions with the bench press. So while their bench press total strength didn't improve, their bench press muscle endurance did improve. So again, muscle endurance can definitely play a role in exercise performance. So at the end of the day, it really depends on, what sport you're talking about, whether or not higher levels of testosterone, higher levels of strength, for instance, may benefit you. As for how much testofen you should be looking for if you're considering a dietary supplement, well, we should keep in mind that the research, basically, as far as I'm concerned, you're using around 600 milligrams a day. So if you're considering a testosterone boosting supplement containing testofen, that's what you should be looking for on the label, 600 milligrams per day. And that may be in 1 capsule, 2 capsules, 3 capsules, 4 capsules. It's really hard to tell. They vary from product to product. But if it adds up to 600 milligrams of the testofen product, you're getting what the research used. As for before or after exercise, a lot of people ask me that, should I take these supplements before or after? Well, the research that I can see doesn't really seem to tell whether the people used it before or after exercise. So I would say experiment with what works best for you. I think it's anybody's guess which would be better. As for how long the testofen compound may say to work, well, some studies have noticed improvements after about 3 months, although I honestly think that's a general statement. I think this might vary from person to person. If testofen really does raise testosterone levels, I think that actually may happen sooner than when someone may notice benefits. Again, they fill out questionnaires, and it may take time for someone to notice the benefits if this stuff is really working. But if we just measure the levels of testosterone, I think that's actually going to happen pretty quickly within a month or 2 months or something like that. As for drug testing, and again, we're talking something that potentially might raise testosterone levels. If this thing really does raise free and total testosterone levels, this may be an issue for athletes who are subjected to random drug testing. So if this is you, I'm going to suggest you look further into this before taking any kind of a testosterone boosting supplement. Again, I can't say that stronger. If you are subject to drug testing and they're analyzing for testosterone levels, you want to look into this. Remember that testofen comes from the herb called fenugreek. So I know what you're thinking. Could you just toss fenugreek seeds into your, say, Vitamix and grind them up in your smoothie and drink it and get the same result as testofen? So if only more researchers were thinking like me. Sadly, nobody appears to have compared Testofen to the fenugreek seeds and say in a smoothie to see if maybe they would say have the same response. So I can't say either way, but hey, college students, dissertation topic, hint, hint, wink, wink. Love to see these studies. But at this stage of the game, I can't say either way. But if you're going to try this on your own, one thing I do want to point out to you, and that's this. Fenugreek doesn't smell very good. I have smelled fenugreek seeds. There's a place near me that sells seeds and nuts and stuff like that. And I've went into that store and I have just smelled the fenugreek. And I can only say it doesn't smell very good. And that's putting it mildly. Some have described fenugreek as having a very sickly, sweet odor. And I wouldn't really describe it like that. To me, it was kind of like an indescribable odor, but many people have told me it smells very, very sweet. Some have even said their urine smelled sweet, almost like maple syrup. Honestly, I couldn't choke it down in a smoothie. I didn't even like the odor of it, so I couldn't even try it. Again, just something to think about if you're brave enough to try fenugreek seeds and maybe a smoothie. You might want to just hold your nose. It doesn't smell very well. And to be perfectly fair, some have also told me the same thing about fenugreek testosterone boosting supplements as well. They tell me they don't smell very well. And again, I haven't smelled the supplements. I haven't actually tried Testofen supplements myself. It may be something to try for a little while to see what happens. But as a rule, I'm a little leery of trying out hormone altering dietary supplements. So it's just not something I'm usually keen on doing. What about side effects? If you are going to take either fenugreek or this Testofen dietary supplement, are there any side effects you should be aware of? Well, it's hard to say right now because essentially the research involves people who are basically healthy and don't have any health problems. So side effects, I think, really aren't known at this point. So if you're not healthy, and I'm using air quotes here, healthy, let me just give you a quick little rundown of some things that you might want to consider before taking either fenugreek or the Testofen dietary supplement. Number one, like all supplements, if you've never done this before, always start with less than is recommended for the first week. Let's see if you have any side effects, because we're all kind of different when it comes to responding to things. Some people may have no side effects. Some people may have others. So starting with less than recommended for the first week is always wise when starting any new dietary supplement. As a rule, I tend to assume that supplements tend to have blood thinning properties, and usually I tend to be right when I make that assumption. So, if you're going to be having surgery, it's probably a good idea to be stopping dietary supplements at least 2 weeks before having surgery. Again, just in case they have any kind of blood thinning effect. Again, you always want to tell your doctor or your surgeon what dietary supplements you're taking. And along those same lines, if you're taking any blood thinner medications, again, we'll always speak to your doctor or pharmacist before doing that. It's my experience that a lot of dietary supplements tend to have blood thinning properties. Also, regardless if you're taking any kind of medication at all, you really want to talk to your doctor and or pharmacist. There's not a lot out there in terms of how fenugreek or Testofen interferes or interacts with medicine. So again, it's always wise course of action. Obviously, in this podcast, we're talking about men. I can't think of why women overall would probably want to be taking Testofen, but as a rule, pregnant breastfeeding, not a good idea in my opinion. I don't see any pregnant breastfeeding research on that. In fact, I've seen a little bit of research that in women, fenugreek may actually exacerbate migraine headaches. So just something to keep back in your mind, especially if you're prone to migraines, may want to stay clear of this. If you're a diabetic, I can understand why maybe a diabetic may be interested in a testosterone booster, because diabetes is associated in some people with lower levels of testosterone. But that said, fenugreek may have a blood sugar lowering effect. So that may be a problem for diabetics. So again, maybe something to steer clear of for diabetics. Obviously, if you know you're allergic to fenugreek, probably not a good idea using any kind of fenugreek supplements. I just would not chance it if you're allergic to this. And if you're taking any kind of hormone replacement therapy, I don't know how that's going to interfere with hormone replacement therapy. So I would not combine fenugreek or supplements that contain it or Testofen with any kind of testosterone low T therapy, whatever you want to call it. Again, lastly, it goes without saying that this is for adults, not for kids. So teenagers, don't be experimenting with testosterone boosting supplements. You already got bunches of testosterone. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Oh, and one thing to keep in mind is when it comes to testosterone, there is an association with blood clots, and blood clots are pretty serious. So that's something usually doctors will warn people about. And while I can't make the same association with fenugreek or Testofen itself, I can mention that I have uncovered at least one report of blood clots in the lungs of a 51-year-old guy after he started taking a testosterone boosting supplement. This was actually a multi-ingredient dietary supplement. Fenugreek was one of those ingredients, but they did not name the dietary supplement he was taking. That's a problem, unfortunately. I wish they would name these supplements, but fenugreek was one of the ingredients. That doesn't mean fenugreek caused the blood clots. This thing could have had 15 or 20 different ingredients. Who knows what was going on? And again, this is just a report of one guy. So how much that pertains to other people, it's hard to say. But again, just something to keep in the back of your mind. If you're prone to blood clots, maybe not something you want to be taking without talking to your doctor first. So what's the final verdict on this Testofen compound? Here's how I see it. There's studies on Testofen, and they seem to show that it may raise free testosterone levels and perhaps even total testosterone levels. But if you ask me, I'm personally not convinced. I'm not convinced yet. In my opinion, I want to see better studies. I want to see studies of guys only over 40, only over 50, because that's really who this stuff is really promoted to. I don't want to see studies with guys who are average age 23 years old. I don't think that's relevant to this conversation. So I tend to discount studies of younger guys. So I want to see more better studies and studies with guys usually over the age of 40. And that's my opinion. Now, if you want to test this out for yourself, you can do this. You can test Testofen out for yourself or any testosterone boosting supplement out for yourself. Here's how you do it. Number one, go to your doctor, get your total testosterone, get your free testosterone levels tested, and preferably do it in the morning because that is when testosterone levels are the highest. So, First thing, you get your levels tested. Then go try a Testofen supplement. Try something for 1 month to 3 months, okay? That's all it's going to take, 1 to 3 months. Don't change anything else. Don't change your exercise routine. Don't change your eating routine. Don't change anything. Just take the supplement as you normally would for between 1 and 3 months. Then get your levels tested again. Get your free testosterone, get your total testosterone measured again, preferably in the morning because that's when it's highest. Did anything change? You'll know, I think, between 1 and 2 months if your testosterone has gone up. For me, that's the best way to know if Testofen is going to work for you. And by the way, if you do try this, let me know what happens. I'm curious. As always, if you want to learn more, I will put the references to this podcast episode in the episode notes, and I'll link to my full review on Testofen as well if you want to read everything that I uncovered. Before we end this episode, I want to address something that I haven't talked about before. I have heard from several people in the last month, and I want to thank them up front for it, for asking me how they can support this podcast. I'm very thankful to get those type of emails. And the first thing I want you to realize is that I'm a big believer in an open and free internet. And so I'm always going to make these podcasts free. There's never going to be a paywall, as I have seen with some other podcasts out there, to make you pay before you get the information. That's never going to happen. I love the internet and the ability to reach people all over the world. So again, that's always going to be free. While I don't say it enough, and I probably have never said it before, if you want to support the podcast and help me basically keep the lights on, I do like living indoors, by the way. I basically had 4 ways for you to do this. Number 1, on my websites, joe-cannon.com and supplementclarity.com, as well as on my YouTube channel, I have links to products on Amazon. If you click any of those links on Amazon and you buy stuff, anything at all, I will earn a small commission. Now, doing this will not cost you anything extra. It doesn't cost anything extra. The price stays the same. Anything you purchase after clicking on one of my Amazon links, I will earn a small commission. And again, that'll help me pay my heating bills. So that's one way you can support the podcast. Another way, which again doesn't mean you have to do anything at all, is that basically just share my podcast, my written reviews on my websites, and even my YouTube videos. Share them on social media, share them with your friends and emails, etc. You basically are helping me spread the word and help more people. And I think that's going to help me out a whole bunch as well. Between my two websites, I probably have close to 1,000 different reviews. So you could go to either of my websites, just use the search button, find what you like, and basically share away. So that's a second way, just helping more people, learn about some of the topics that I'm talking about and writing about and doing videos about. And then number 3, and this is something I really haven't talked about before now, but I have recently started dabbling in the t-shirt business, basically making little t-shirts, hoodies, and other things. Basically, it's another avenue for me to kind of use as an outlet to say things that I always wanted to say. For instance, I have created the very first coffee mug that lists the symptoms of rhabdomyolysis. Very first coffee mug in human history, and I created, basically it's a Rhabdo coffee mug. So basically you go to my little t-shirt store and you purchase whatever it is I create, and I make a little bit off of that too. So I'm constantly making little t-shirts and hoodie designs and other things, and put a link to them so you can check them out yourself. And again, feel free to share all that on social media as well. You might like some of the stuff I put out there. It's kind of different. And then number 4, you can purchase any of my books. Again, I'm guilty. I don't say this enough, but I've written 8 books so far. I probably got a few more left in me, but 8 of them so far. And if you're in the US, you can get all my books directly from me, simply just going to joe-cannon.com, joe-cannon.com. I actually have a tab that says my books, and you can go right there and get them directly from me. If you're listening to me outside the US, just go to Amazon, and all my books are there as well. And I will put a link to my books on Amazon so you could easily find them as well. Put them in the episode notes. So there you go. There's 4 ways that you can basically help me spread the word and help support my podcast websites and basically help me pay my rent. So that's about all I got for you. This episode is a wrap, except for the quote of the week, which comes to us this week from actor Keanu Reeves. He's known for saying some interesting things, and I thought this quote was pretty interesting this week. He basically goes like this: "Even in the face of tragedy, a stellar person can survive and thrive. No matter what's going on in your life, you can overcome it. Life is worth living." I really like those words, especially as we approach Christmas, which I know can be a double-edged sword for a lot of us, and that includes me too. So hopefully these words have given you something to think about. I'm Joe Cannon. Until next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Be safe, go out, and where you can, try to make a difference.